Hey guys, this is Leo from Germantech. I'm standing in front of a transmission 930 turbo. The car was brought to us as we were rebuilding the engine. We have been asked to check also on the transmission for shifting issues. Gear number one had problems to be engaged in the first place, so whenever you want to take off a traffic light, the first gear just takes a lot of force to be engaged. And gear number three, we shouldn't develop the scratching sound, so you had to very gently press the clutch and then very gently engage from the second into the third gear, of course, which is not the purpose of driving a 930 turbo. So we will be dismantling this transmission and we will check the synchronizing rings. We will check also the shift forks, or we will check for any other damages in the gear sets. Check out what we find. So guys, our transmission is dismantled up to a point where we can see what actually caused the problem. One is the engagement of gear number one, and also what caused the problem of scratching sounds when engaging gear number three. To overcome the problem with the gear number one, we had a look at the gears up here. The gears basically look pretty much good for a car from 1982. What we are going to do, we are going to replace the synchro rings that are inside here, 1 and 2, as well as on gear number 3 and 4. The synchro rings we will replace alongside the shift guide, which is this part here. This is the part where the shift fork is moving the guide up and down, and in that way producing a power flow from the gear to the actual shaft. We have received our spare parts, and over here, this is the new part here. You can see how sharp the teeth are edged on the new part compared to the blunt and rundown ones here at gear number 3. Now, if you look at the transmission, it is important to know how actually a transmission works and how the force is being distributed. If you look here at the bottom, we took out the differential. This here is basically the power input of the transmission, which will go all the way through and be transferred over the gears down to the power output, being guided right into the differential. Now, you think of it like a bicycle, if you want to know which gear is allocated where. For those of you who have been riding a bicycle with several gears, they would know. When you put a chain on a low gear on the pedal and on the highest, on the biggest gear on the wheel hub in the back of your bicycle, you would know that you have the easiest force transfer with the least speed. So here in a car it is pretty much the same thing. Power comes in. From the smallest gear you transfer to the biggest gear, so that would be gear number 1, and then the power goes back down to the differential. So, on the other way around, when you put your chain on your bicycle to the highest sprocket on your pedals on the input side, then you would have the highest speed, but of course the lowest force. In easy words, we have here gear number 1, gear number 2 as fixed wheels, we have gear number 3 and gear number 4 shifted gears. On the second shaft, we have the gear number 1 and gear number 2 shifted. So here this is a shift guide. The shift guide will simply move over from gear number 1, then to gear number 2, then moves back to neutral as you are engaging the shift guide on the primary shaft, to gear number 3 and gear number 4. So guys, I placed myself behind the transmission. Before we are going to start our repairs of the transmission, I would like to explain you a little bit about the basic function. So basically on this side here is where the clutch brings the power into the transmission, and on this side of the transmission will be the shaft where the power leaves the transmission. Now slightly different to a bicycle. While you are spinning the sprocket, the chain will jump from one sprocket to another. In a car it's slightly different. In a car, the next gear to be shifted has to be either accelerated or decelerated, depending whether we want to shift up or down. Behind the transmission we have the shift forks together with the shift rods that are moving our shift couplings. Shift couplings are basically shifting from one gear to another. On the power output shaft, that will be from gear number 1 to 2 or 2 to 1. On the power input shaft, it will be gear number 4 to 3 or 3 to 4. Here is our shift coupling for gear number 3 and 4, and here is our shift coupling between gear number 1 and 2. Now if I'm to spin this transmission, I'm just going ahead and spin the transmission like the engine would do. As you see right now, we are in neutral. So if I just hold the power output shaft, the wheels are just spinning freely. Now what I'm going to do now, I'm going to engage gear number 1 and watch what happens. When the transmission is spinning freely as it does right now, I would depress the clutch and then I would engage gear number 1. Now gear number 1 would move this shift coupling. I do that by hand. So now gear number 1 is engaged. As you can see, it's locking the entire transmission in gear number 1. As we are now accelerating, we are depressing the clutch again. We will be shifting into gear number 2. So what a shift coupling does, and the synchro ring underneath, basically it moves out from this gear number 1. And here gear number 2 is engaged now. So we disengage gear number 2 and engage gear number 3. That is gear number 3. And as you can see, even if I try it manually, it just doesn't want to engage down here. It just seems to have a problem engaging. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to push a little bit harder. So now it is engaged all the way, guys. Have you seen that? So this is the reason why we want to replace the shift coupling on this car alongside the synchro rings. Now that was gear number 3. I'm going to shift back down now to gear number 4. Carefully, we don't want to bend anything here. So neutral again, and then down to gear number 4. So this would be gear number 4, yeah? Happily engaged. Transmission is installed back in the car. Naturally, we have replaced the flywheel, clutch and bearing as well. We will be installing the drive shafts now, and then we will be taking it for a spin and see whether the gears are shifting the way they're supposed to. So guys, the car has been tested and it's been running absolutely amazing. All the previous issues have been solved. If you like and enjoy the video, please do subscribe to our channel for more videos to come in the future.